the sculptures and the paintings I'm surrounded by have to do with a great project which has to do with the language of Snow White, and the apex of which was a presentation at the Armory on Park Avenue of a gigantic installation reinterpreting the story of Walt Disney, with Paul himself acting as Walt Disney, or actually as Paul. And this led to a number of things. There was the videos, there was a set that became an installation, there are the drawings, there are paintings separately, and there are these sculptures and the Brown Rothko paintings. Paul uses a term for them, which is a spin-off, which is a phrase he always uses to describe a series, a body of work, which is going to emanate from an adventure, the adventure of the moment, stem from it, be different and have its own autonomy. So obviously, spin-off is a term that is used in the film industry. It's a spin-off of this film, and it's also interesting because it goes back to the parallel that Paul is consistently doing between his work and the film industry, which he is turning upside down. Which, one of the things that always fascinates me is that his studio has become a safe haven for people who are very disappointed with the film industry and want to be creative. And they go and work with him. And he's gathered an enormous amount of really top people from Hollywood. The wood statues, they are playing with our expectations in an incredibly elaborate way. We see them as physical entities. They're here, they're in front of us. However, you can very easily describe them as monsters. Or, to use a Greek word, adunata, impossibilities. In Greek, the adunata were supposed to help us think about the world because they were impossibilities we had to confront ourselves with. Paul, who has been working with 3D engineers for a while, took toys from the Walt Disney Company and began considering how he could cut them in pieces and get the shapes, the parts, to assemble in ways you could not expect. And then those shapes were made in Walla Walla into sculptural realities. Pieces of wood, huge heavy pieces of wood, which would be assembled together. They were made over the course of 5 months. The largest weighed 20 tons, 2 pieces of 10 each. The Brown Rothkos, they are paint. They're basically remnants. They're performative remnants of paint being spread on carpets of the set of White Snow. So you could say they're performative objects somehow, but they're much more than that. And the association with Rothko, I find especially fascinating, because Paul has been for a long time confronting the abstract expressionists. You've had de Kooning, you've had Pollock, and now you have Rothko. And when you think of both de Kooning and Pollock, they're both artists with a very strong shamanic, gestural aspect to their work. And you could really see it very present in Paul's work. And they also both embody the very powerful male figure. Rothko is much more challenging in a way. He's a much more laid back, much more intellectual, in a sense, figure. He's also someone whose work is not about the gesture, but about the experience. It's about opening rather than closing, in a way. It's about creating spaces for experience. It's very metaphysical, it's theological, and obviously it has to do with despair. We all know that Rothko committed suicide. So, and it's a different narrative from the male destroying himself with alcohol and everything. So here, these paintings are addressing Rothko as another part of Paul's world. A world that is about creating spaces for people to experience. A world that is about the viewer as much as it is about its author. Rothko, it's all about making something that seems flat and opens up. That's also what this is about. And in a way, they're giving us an entry, by the way they're made, into the many aspects of Paul's work. WS was an incredibly material adventure in which the physical presence, the life in the set, all of this was crucial. At the same time, that life and the narrative, it's abstraction. Abstraction is absolutely crucial in Paul McCarthy's worldview. So these works are providing two entries into abstraction. They are abstracted from a process, from a work, they are abstracted from a narrative, and they are abstracted from something else, as well as formally offering different entries into what an abstraction means. Is this an abstraction or is this an object? Is this an abstraction or is it a representation? Paul McCarthy's work is often connected to Hollywood. And he has contradictory feelings about Hollywood. As he said, once, I love Hollywood and I hate it at the same time. And his relation to Hollywood is a fascination and perhaps a love, I think, for some of the great things about it, the great narratives, and a disgust for many things that are connected to it: power, money, exploitation of people, exploitation of commodification, all that commodification means. And these works apply a similar method, but to objects that are not necessarily Hollywood related. While Disney, and these are toys, is bigger or different from Hollywood. It's a specific world with specific structures. So these and these are both engaging in a challenge of the commodification of culture, as well as reminding us that there might be something below, underneath the commodification. There might be some of our wild dreams. There might be some of our hopes. There might be some of our deep relation to things and stuff that is so central. Paul is reminding us, I think, in his own way, which is never assertive, always questioning, to engage, to be ready to be engaged at all levels. So he's pushing us to be more human and to be more aware of our humanity.